Before the 19th century, lobster was reserved for criminals, the poor, and for slaves because it was so abundant and so cheap that it would just wash up on the shore. So, okay, we're going to give this to the peasants.
Welcome to the Kingspiration Podcast. This is the place where you'll learn how to get unstuck and gain momentum in your life and business. Each week, we tackle the real aspects of entrepreneurship, personal development, relationships, and fitness. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures, sharing wisdom and experiences to propel you forward. Welcome to Kingspiration. Let's start the conversation.
All right, Ethan. So on this episode, I want to chat to you about the idea of just pure, you say status, I say status symbols. And what came across my inbox recently was an article about KitchenAid and how they've just unveiled a new walnut mixing bowl that costs $700 for this mixing bowl. And look, you can get a plastic or a ceramic mixing bowl or a metal mixing bowl for about $40. This costs $700. There are also concerns around a walnut mixing bowl splintering when you're using it, which you're not going to get with your metallic and your plastic and your ceramic mixing bowls. But most interestingly, this walnut mixing bowl comes with a warning from KitchenAid, from the manufacturer, that says it is not recommended to use the oiled wood bowl for whipped egg creations. So you have literally just paid $700 for a mixing bowl, which is generally used for baking, which is generally going to have some whipped egg creations in it, but it says do not use it for that. So where do we draw the line with just status and stupidity?
It's funny when you brought that up, because it's almost like the thing is useless, but I guess it's impressive if depending on what circles you run in, if people come over to your house and they see this thing, it's a status symbol. And when you first brought it up to me, it made me think about that app. Do you remember when the iPhone first came out and when they first released the App Store, and someone created an app called I Am Rich? And yeah. Oh, you didn't hear about this? So this was in like 2008. Okay. It's called the I Am Rich app, and it cost $1,000 to download this app, and it didn't do anything. All it is a red light, like this red gem appears on your screen. Right. That's it. And so Apple took it out of the App Store really quickly because they're like, okay, we don't want to be this type of company. It's going to tarnish the image of Apple. But apparently it had gotten a few downloads. Like some people actually downloaded. Let me see. Oh, in 24 hours. In 24 hours, it sold 8 copies. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty impressive anyone could create this app. Yeah. But that shows you that there are people out there who want to just show that they're rich. I mean, in a lot of countries, even just having an iPhone is a kind of a status symbol itself, because it's the more expensive version or the more expensive smartphone. So, I'm of the belief, and I've heard this before, that in every business, what you're really selling is status. Mm. Even if you're just selling a T-shirt, in the back of our minds, we're like, your consumer is thinking, will this elevate my status? And even if you're selling something like food or groceries, I mean, obviously you need nourishment. So that's the base level of elevating your status. But think about when someone goes to dine at a really high-end restaurant that might be $400 a plate. Well, you want people to know that you were there and that you're able to afford these types of things. So it's a status thing. And I don't know, what do you think about that? Do you believe every business, and if you boil it down to its essence, is selling status?
I was going through that in my mind as you were saying it, because essentially what we're saying there is every single product that gets sold lives at the top of Maslow's hierarchy. Because, is it at the top of
self-actualization, right?
No, self-actualization is right at the top. Is status is just below self-actualization, is it not? I'm butchering this. It's somewhere in there. It's somewhere in there.
So
Ethan's my fact checker, so he's going to fact check me right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're checking facts real time here, just like a debate. Now, Yeah, esteem is right under self-actualization,
Yeah.
self-esteem, so that's status. Yeah.
Yeah. So self-esteem, status. So we're saying status. So we're saying that essentially all products live somewhere at the top of Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah.
So anything that you don't, and this is interesting because maybe this is where we draw the difference, or we draw that line, is anything that you essentially don't need to survive, any product that you don't, because if you're buying food, unless, oh man, we could get onto an interesting conversation. Pineapples were once the ultimate status symbol. You
Mm.
when they first reached the shores of the US, but also when they first reached the shores of the United Kingdom, they were, I think they were, if you did the conversion, you would buy a pineapple for about $5,000. If you converted it now, that's what the cost of a pineapple was. If you look at the entrance to big brand properties, they'll still often have a pineapple on a pineapple decor on top of the walls, or the roof might be shaped like a pineapple. So it was a status symbol. Anyway, so that's sweet. But right now, generally, other than what you were saying around a five Michelin star restaurant where you're paying $400 for a meal, that's not to survive. But you're not, if you are just buying maize to feed your family, that there's no status in that. There's just survival. So it's probably it tilts from what you're buying to survive versus what you're buying to find status.
Yeah, and that's that survival. That's at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, right? So assuming that that's met, right? Assuming that you're, which you are, you're fortunate, you're not homeless, starving on the street, and your survival needs are met, then everything above that, I guess what I'm saying is, then in business, everything you're buying, you're thinking in your mind, will this elevate my status?
Yeah.
Would you agree? Yeah.
I do, because you're also thinking, will this make me smarter? Will it help me do this? Will it help me do that? And all of those things are directly or indirectly going to impact or elevate your status in some way. So yes.
It's funny. I didn't know about the pineapple thing, but that makes a lot of sense. Did you know that lobster used to be peasant food? Before the 19th century, lobster was reserved for poor people. And in fact, I just pulled it up. And when I first learned about this, I was in Las Vegas for some reason, and it was just a random fact on the screen. I was like, oh, I didn't know that, because I love eating lobster. It's one of my favorite foods. Before the 19th century, lobster was reserved for criminals, the poor, and for slaves, because it was so abundant and so cheap that it would just wash up on the shore. So, okay, we're going to give this to the peasants. But now, of course, lobster is considered more premium delicacy, seafood. And it's just interesting how things can change due to the supply, right?
Yeah.
Economics 101, supply and demand. The more rare it is, the lower the supply, the more expensive it is. The more expensive it is, the higher the perceived status. So then people want it. So I guess this is good exercise to think about how to inject this into your business, right?
We're going on a proper tangent. I've just finished reading a book called The Fish That Ate the Whale. And it's about a gentleman by the name of Sam Zamurray, who they called him Sam the Banana Man. And he was a Polish immigrant to the US in the late 1800s. And he first discovered bananas. That was the first time. I think he was about 18, and he found bananas for the first time. And bananas were not widely recognized fruit in the US yet. Not a lot of people had seen a banana, not a lot of people had eaten a banana, but there were some that were making their way back, generally from Guatemala, Ecuador, those tropical places that didn't grow in the US. And anyway, it's a long book, and Sam Zamurray grew this business, but they eventually owned 70% of all the privately owned land in the Isthmus, which was Guatemala and Ecuador, and all of that was owned by the United Fruit Company. And these were just banana plantations, and they were controlling the entire supply of bananas to the US. And originally, bananas were a very premium product that only the rich and the wealthy could afford to buy. And by controlling exactly what you've said now, by being able to control supply and demand, by being able to control the amount of bananas that were being brought into the US, they were able to take it from being a premium product to everybody needs to eat a banana every single day and drop the price right down. It was the fruit for the people. And they grew this absolutely, it was called the United Fruit Company, this absolutely monstrous. At some stage, they had, I think, the largest. They had like a private navy, basically, had more ships than majority of the navies globally, or something silly in their fleet that were bringing these bananas to the country. But it was just, it's a very interesting story. But again, a banana went from being a status symbol, not a lot of people had it, and then controlling the demand and wanting to make sure that how do we grow this company as much as possible? No, we need to make sure that every person can afford to eat bananas, and it's going to become the fruit for the people. And they completely changed that. And our bananas are a staple that I eat way too many bananas. I love a good banana.
Wow.
But it's a staple that we all have.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I guess my biggest takeaway from this, and probably a good way to end this, is that, nothing's permanent. Status can change. The same object can change from high status to low status by tweaking the supply and demand of it and the price of it, and the perceived, which therefore affects the perceived value of that.
Yeah. And I think my closing thought is status will be such a driver of decision making that a product may not even be used for its intended purpose. The walnut mixing bowl. It more than likely will just sit on a shelf and be a conversation starter and a status symbol. It will never actually be used to mix eggs or mix a meal, because that's what the ceramic $40 bowl that's hidden in the cupboard away from prying eyes is for. So it may not even be used for what's intended to be used for.
That's hilarious. All right, Justin, let's find a good one. All right.
Thanks, Ethan. Cheers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Kingspiration. We hope this conversation sparked insights to ignite action in your life and business.
We're on this journey together, sharing our challenges and successes to help all of us take the next step towards building momentum and ultimately reaching our goals.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit and leave us a 5-star review.
And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly conversations. Until next time, keep rolling, keep growing, and keep being inspired.